Hi Power Plurals, my name is Emily and today I'll be your host. Welcome to this next video of Power to the Plurals. In this video, I'll be sharing the 10 things I wish I had known when I just got diagnosed with DID. I shared part of this in my DID 101 session for the Plural Positivity World Conference 2019, but I truly believe that this topic deserves its own video. Because I wish I had this video when I found out that I had DID or that I was not alone in my head, because when I found out I didn't know it was called DID. For me, that was 10 years ago. I found out in 2009 when we were pregnant with our son. We were bedridden for almost 9 months and very, very sick. And in that time, I dissociated so much and I met some of the others. For others in our system, it worked different and they found out later or after we got diagnosed. And we even have parts who don't know we are DID to this day, or they just don't believe it. So there's that as well. When I found out, there wasn't that much information out there. And so I think this video is going to be a great resource for those who just found out they have DID or just got diagnosed with DID. So these 10 things that I'm going to talk about today are the things that I experienced in my personal life. For you, you might have experienced different things, or you might have wished you had known other things when you just got diagnosed. And that same goes for other people who are diagnosed with DID, of course. So these are my individual examples, and they might be different for you. Number 1, nightmares. I wish I had known that I would get nightmares. And back in the day, when I just found out, I had this mindset. If I work hard enough and I keep my mind occupied and busy, then obviously my brain isn't going to have time to focus on that trauma. That only worked for a very short amount of time, and it caused a lot of pain in our system. And the trauma was on the front of our brain. It wasn't processed. It might still not be processed. So it was constantly on our mind, constantly. And so the more I blocked it, the more it came back at night when I tried to sleep or when I was asleep. And I think my subconscious just had to figure out a way to get it out. Those nightmares were really disabling. I was so afraid of going to sleep, and then I was also afraid of staying awake, because if I went to bed when I was really exhausted, the nightmares only would get worse. And so I found myself in a sort of catch-22 situation, where I didn't know if I should go to bed or stay awake, or back in the day, I wish there was some sort of sleep machine that would, like you see in Star Trek or something, where we can just lay in and then, I don't know. That machine didn't exist, but what did exist was a type of medication that we got to try while we were inpatient, and that medication made it so we slept without dreams and hence without nightmares. At the same time, I was in therapy inpatient, so I was very much actively engaging with my system, working on that trauma as well. So I definitely think it's a combination of the both that worked for us. Number 2, to expect more alters to show up. Oh man, I've done this so many times where I convinced myself that I knew all my parts. I did this when we found out we had 12 parts. I did this when we found out we had 40 parts. I did this when we found out we had 100 parts. I closed the door and I said, this is the max. We're not doing this anymore. But I didn't realize back in the day that that damage was already done, that there weren't necessarily new alters, but that just we weren't consciously aware of each other yet. I also had a lot of talks over the years with people that I blocked out, that I literally sent away, who shared with me the pain that they went through. And that was really intense for everyone involved. It was very emotional, and we needed to do a lot of healing in our system to get over that. And so hence, by now, I try my very best to keep that door open as best as possible. Number 3. I wish I'd known that flashbacks can make little sense. I had such confusing flashbacks that they were literally impossible. And so the denial was extreme. By now I have figured out a way how to deal with denial. I have done some radical acceptance that denial is part of my disorder. So whenever I feel denial, that means I have DID. And that works for me now, but I don't think that would have worked 10 years ago. But I had flashbacks that make little sense, and only later in therapy I found out that there were 2 or 3 events at the same time in one flashback, and that was very confusing. And once I figured that out, once other parts shared that they shared memories at the same time. Especially, we have some alters with the same name. So our therapist would say like, Sarah, can you explain what happened when you were little or whatever? I don't think he said that, but you get the gist. So, and then multiple Sarahs would answer that question. And it was so confusing, and it took so many years to figure that out. And to accept that that was really what was happening, because that was also really difficult to, my therapist had to explain to me so many times that this is how it can work for someone who is very poorly fragmented, because that DID specialist back in 2011, he said, I see you switch more often than you notice that you switch. And that was very scary for me. But by now I'm like, he was so right.
Wow.
So, yeah, interesting. Number 4, I wish I had known that every alter came to help, even the persecutors and the angry protectors and the angry littles that was even harder to deal with, like the teens and stuff. I feel better, like, telling them straight up that this is not okay. But for a little, if they are having a tantrum, they're having a tantrum, right? You're not going to say like, shut up or whatever. So that was very hard to deal with for us. And so I wish I had known that every alter was there to help, even if they didn't know the best way to help, or they had misguided ideas on what protection actually meant. By now, our persecutors are our best protectors, and they are wonderful system mates. Number 5, grounding techniques. Yep, it's in here. I wish I had known that grounding techniques work like a muscle. When they talked to me about grounding techniques and I tried them, I only dissociated more. I didn't realize that when you name 5 things of the same color, you have to actually be in the moment, focus, be present, or try to at least, right? That is the goal. I didn't get that. And I didn't realize that it worked like a muscle that you have to train, that it takes practice to get perfection in your grounding techniques. Number 6. I wish I had known that it was safe to join the online DID and Plural community. Back in the day, I was so scared of joining the online community. I thought that I would catch memories from other people or catch alters from other people. I was really scared of other people with DID, of catching all sorts of things. By now, I know that is not possible. That is not a reality. It has never happened in the, 5 years that I've been in the online DID community. I've never catched a memory or found an alter in my system that wasn't mine. What? You get me. We run an online Facebook support group called Alternation, Power to the Plural Safe Space. Long name. If you type Alternation, you also find it. And that is a support group for people who are DID or Plural and need support. And it's a wonderful place where there's such a lovely community and people engage with each other's posts and offer support and advice. It's wonderful peer-to-peer support. And I really wish I had known sooner that that was a safe option, especially because there's so little treatment out there. Number 7, I wish I had known how hard it was to find a good therapist. So I've had quite a few by now, and they can't help me, or they are very far away, or their organization closes down because the top level managers can't agree on the theories around dissociation or DID, I guess. And so by now, I know that it's a worldwide problem. I see it as a privilege if someone is able to find a therapist or get a diagnosis for DID. From research, we know it takes 6 to 12 years to get a correct diagnosis for DID, and before that, people get diagnosed with a lot of other things that they might or might not have. And then finding a good therapist who accepts what you want as a therapy outcome goal instead of what they think is the most beneficial to the system, not our system, their system. That is just really hard to deal with. And I was very naive in the beginning. I felt that I had the right to therapy. It's in the Dutch law, evidence-based treatment in English, and so I thought it was out there, but it wasn't. And it's not just here in the Netherlands. It's really a worldwide problem. 8. I wish I had known that when puzzle pieces fall into place for me, that doesn't mean it falls into place for everyone else in my system. So sometimes something started to make sense to me and I started to puzzle things together and it made sense to me. And then I explained my theory to someone else and they were like, no, that's incorrect. That is not how it works. And then a month later, they would be like, oh, you were right. It did went like that. And so it's interesting how that works. And it also happened to other people where they knew about a subsystem, for example, and I said, nah, that is not there or whatever. And it was. 9. I wish I had known that inside safety and inside happiness bring outside happiness. And that making your inner world safe makes you feel safer and hence you perceive the world as safer as well. Your window of normativity becomes larger if your inner world is safer. 10. Just because you get diagnosed with DID or find out that you're plural doesn't mean that you are a system or a collective system. That is something you have to work on to achieve, and that takes time and effort and dedication and passion and tears and sweat. It's a lot of work to accomplish. We are 10 years in. I still don't feel like I'm really there. Obviously, I'm a lot further along than I was 10 years ago. But I also know that I still have a long road ahead of me. Next week, we will upload a video titled The 5 Steps to Becoming a Collective System. And so we hope that video will help you with this point number 10 on my list. Number 11, I don't have enough fingers. I wish I had known that everyone in my system was there to help me and that I can lean on to them, that I can count on them for support and for help, that I can ask for help and that they will provide it when I need it. And I wish I had known I didn't have to do it all by myself. It's really okay to trust your system to have your back. And I hope you can experience that as well in your life. If you learned something new in this video, please answer our poll to give us more feedback. You can also leave a comment down below in the comment section. If you learned something new, please like this video and don't forget to subscribe. If you click the bell, you'll get notifications. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about DID. I really appreciate the effort you put into this. I wish you the best of luck and see you for the next video. Bye! Number 5.